So we're live.
Okay, I'll start here in about 3 minutes.
The library, by the way, is looking amazing. The new picnic, the new area, it looks great.
Mary Jane Loveland made that comment today.
Knock on wood, I've been saying to everybody that's been asking me when it's gonna be ready, I'm like, you know what, I've seen a lot of projects in the city. This one might actually make the
I
deadline.
think it's August, isn't it?
August, I thought it was September 1st.
I think it's early August. I think substantial completion. Paul, am I right about that? Substantial completion, early August, I think, in the library?
And they're well on track for that. Most of the hardscape's down. So
They just put the softscape for the,
I saw them packing that down earlier
Yeah.
today. I didn't notice whether they got that in yet
it
or
looks
not.
like they got most of it on the east side done, which is the bigger swath. Yeah,
Excellent.
it's pretty exciting.
It's nice to have a project.
Yeah.
It took a lot, it was a long time
It
coming.
was, but everybody thinks we're closed, so the sooner it gets, done, the better for us, because
Right.
it is kind of people are.
Manufacturing, visitation.
Yeah. Well, some people can't come in that back door, it's hard to park because of all the trucks and stuff like that, so there are
Yeah.
some things going on, but it looks really good. What are they gonna do with the Arastra?
It's gonna stay there and they're gonna tuck
Hey, Scott.
they originally gonna put that grass around it, but now they're gonna use the gravel instead because it's not a big enough area to put that lawn stuff in. So it'll look very similar, I think, to what it looked like, and that's better for the trees too.
Oh, yeah, some more drainage, is that what you're thinking? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no worries, I can't remember what I asked you.
The library.
Oh, yeah, okay, you need to say this, right? But if you want to, that's fine.
Well,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. The only reason they asked me to ask you is because they don't like that, and then you would come in, and they knew I was on council with you, so I felt like I completely forgot, by the way, that's what happens when you get old, you can't remember what you asked anybody 2 weeks ago. Congratulations on your daughter's wedding, by the way.
Yeah,
Be able to get more, but
big
you know, the
weekend.
You're
wedding
paying
was-
for a wedding, dude. We'll look for you next year. Any more kids are getting married, we'll try to line it up.
Everything go okay?
I don't need any more daughters. We've got a son now, so hopefully the tradition holds.
John and I both have 2 daughters, so.
Good luck.
I don't want to bum you out or anything, but I've been to 2 weddings very recently where the groom's mom paid for the wedding.
What?
Just because of circumstances, but yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I was gonna say, somebody was getting that right there.
Sometimes
It was
that's
just
just the way it works out.
Wouldn't
right?
have worked out any other way,
Yeah. Well, I think it was 50-50 now. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out that way.
yeah. That's what mine was.
Something about this tradition thing, I don't know. what that-
I thought you had to pay for your own.
I paid,
I had to pay for my
we
own.
paid for our own.
I did too.
I think it's when you get married past 35, you're kind of on your own anyway.
Fine,
Like,
fine. Valid.
I should check for that.
that's why you keep saying,
I
how
told
do
her
you
I had
find
to
this?
send
How are you doing?
Dating.
Got the grandkids over.
That's always fun.
I'm wore out.
I bet.
How are you, John, other than being wore out?
You send it by email or?
It's 6:01. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 10th, 2023 City of Idaho Springs work session. And we have 3 items that we'll talk about tonight. The first one is the ballot measure or about full debrucing.
Mayor, Carmen is having she just got here. Hold on one moment.
Okay.
Carmen,
Sweet. Look at that.
Sorry, I was missing a digit and I was pivoting from another meeting and it was like, sorry, I'm here. I'm good.
All right, Carmen, we're actually ready to go on the first item. The mayor was just announcing that and you popped up, so we're ready.
Okay, Mayor and Council, you see as summarized in the memo that I put in packets for you what staff is seeking tonight in this work session is really a direction from you on whether you would like us as staff to pursue the preparation of an ordinance. It could be a resolution referring a ballot question to city electors this November concerning a general debrucing question. I think you all know what that means, but maybe for those of you who didn't, I outlined that in the memo. Generally, a debrucing question that is broad and without parameters would permit the city to both retain and spend revenues in excess of the Tabor limitations that would otherwise apply. And I don't even want to know the exact calculations of Tabor. That's why we have people like Lorraine. But essentially, Tabor limits any government, state governments. Within Colorado, it limits government's growth year over year. And also, among other things, it also requires no new taxes or increases in taxes without voter approval. But Tabor does a lot more than that. It was sort of, I think, maybe campaigned and touted as no new taxes without voter approval, but it has a lot of other stuff in there too. And this sort of cap on year over year growth of government on all levels is one of those things that Tabor contains. That is a pretty significant consequence to local governments. As a result, lots of units of government ask their electors to approve exceptions to the general cap on revenue retention and spending limits. And those ballot questions are called debrucing questions because Doug Bruce was a big proponent, right, of the original Tabor Act and that language that was referred to and adopted by electors in the late 90s. So that's what staff would like your direction on. I found it interesting that the city did used to be generally debruced. The city electors have previously approved this exception to Tabor limits. And I mean that in the general sense. In other words, the city electors previously approved in 98 and 2002 this kind of general debrucing question, which allowed the city to retain and spend revenues in excess of Tabor on anything. So two times before, city electors approved this sort of general exception to the Tabor rules, but only for 4 years. And then in 2006, when the city asked city electors to make that a permanent, ongoing, indefinite general debrucing, electors said no. So in 2008, we as the city went back to registered electors and said, okay, well, how about debrucing for essentially street projects? That was approved. So as it currently stands, forever and ever until undone, the city has the ability to retain and spend excess revenues on street projects, but we don't have that ability as a city to say spend it on things like the trails, Virginia Canyon Mountain Park, or the mobility hub. The parking garage is not really a street, right? There are lots of projects that the city might wish to undertake that we have done in the past and that we might in the future that could benefit from a debrucing measure that is of general applicability to all local governmental projects. So we as staff aren't saying you have to or you don't have to. We just want to take your temperature, get your direction on whether you wish to consider that kind of a debrucing question this fall.
All right, Scott, what do you think?
I have a question on what happens to the extra money now that we're not allowed to spend? Where does it go?
We typically don't exceed our limitations, but if we were to, you would see that in a refund, right? We've seen that at the state level before. You get your Tabor refund checks or something like that. It is to be refunded to the taxpayers. And that can literally be, everybody gets $27.32 with their water bill.
What's coming increasingly relevant on that is that we're having to really scrutinize grant applications we put forward because they will put us over the limit. So that's where there's a really big impact. might not be able to apply for all the grants we need now.
If we Bruce,
That's good
If
to
we
know.
don't.
But
not get
these Bruce. So, that being said, I think a lot of times you put something on there about taxes, people just automatically, and I'm as guilty as everybody probably that's gonna vote on this. 90% of them are not educated on how this works.
Tabor's really, I mean, I've been listening to this for like 25 years and I still don't really understand.
So I'm all for putting this on the ballot, but we will have to have an active campaign if we want to try to get this passed. I mean, an active.
If we gear it towards roads though, and road
Well, he
improvements,
just told us one good reason. You want a general debrucing,
oh, for
right? You
everything.
want everything. It's it's exactly the same time it's failed in 08. And that does from a grant perspective. It's just, so if I get a $3 million grant currently, it doesn't go to a road project. That's going to push us above Tabor. So by definition, yes, we got a $3 million grant to pay for this project, but as a city, because we're over Tabor, we can't. And if that makes any sense when you get into the details of it. It's what 140 pages of for us to get into that web works. But he's stating a good reason why it's not a good law to be there in the first place.
Right.
And if we educate the general public on that, we might have a fighting chance of, okay, well, now I see why I should be voting.
And again, I think your point is very valid. It's gonna be hard. Like I said, we've been hearing, I'm sure John can say the same thing. We've been hearing about it forever, but it's not simplified. It's not in money and sure it's easy to be simplified.
Fourth already passed like 78% at the same time the one bill, city in 08. It's just, I think it was the wording thing really did at the time.
Oh, yeah,
How it
totally.
was worded.
Well, now we have social media on our side that we can actually use some.
We have a ton of stuff
Yeah.
that didn't exist then.
Right.
It's to our benefit to educate the public, answer questions in a timely manner, all of that stuff.
The town hall would be good.
Yeah, just have an open discussion about what it means, where we are currently, what it would look like with debrucing, what the benefits to the general taxpayer in town are.
Yep.
But no, there's no tax implications.
I vote
them,
for
right?
you to
They
like
pay-
do all the answers.
They pay anyways, or you're already paying the same amount of taxes, it doesn't change your taxes, it just changes what we can do with that, whatever that
Right.
final amount is. And if they realize that that money is actually going to the good of the community.
Yeah.
Right,
Not being just spent in a,
willy-nilly fashion.
in
And also that we might lose money that would be for the good of the community. as well.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
the
I
grants.
think that's
Yeah.
the key thing you market is our ability to get grant funding to fund large scale improvements, whatever that might be, there's trails, all this stuff is currently limited by not being debruced.
Okay.
And I think that's something that needs to be said to the public, so they understand that these projects are viable for us and will be competitive if we do debruce.
Right.
It's just having that conversation.
Is this
I love-
something that's gonna be like every entity in the state's gonna be able to decide for themselves, or are they trying to do it statewide?
Well, I think a lot of them already have.
There's very few that are not deeply.
Oh,
I
well,
don't
that's
know
also a good
exactly.
point to put out there.
Yep.
What is the reason? I mean, obviously,
and I
other
love-
places are doing it for.
There's a very small number of municipalities, especially that have not debruced
Okay.
prior to. I love your idea of the town hall because that's a great way to get people engaged.
Yeah.
Carmen can tell us what, there's certain things that we can do and can't do as council members.
Limitations on what we can, how much we
Say,
can campaign.
right.
Right. Yeah,
And you know what's interesting on that point, Scott, I'm so glad you're such a good and learned counselor. You remember all the legal trainings and memos you've got on the FCPA.
No, I
So
don't.
good for you. You're straight A student.
Jesus.
Those limitations, Mayor and Council, if you hearken back, like Councilor Pinnell, to the prior FCP training, those limitations kick in when the ballot issue is set and referred. We are at a point now on July 10th, where clearly we haven't referred, you as council have not referred the ballot question. You're allowed to be a little more robust in your activities prior to the setting of the ballot question. So over the next month, almost two, it is really the very beginning of September that we have to get the ballot questions to the county. So for the next couple months, if we deferred actually referring the question and setting the ballot issue to our last meeting in August, those FCPA regulations would not kick in until then. So your advocacy could be a little more aggressive than it can be after the beginning of September or the end of August, if that's when we set the ballot question. So just something to consider, but town hall, also a great idea. I don't know if the history of the community as reflected in the history of the questions is something you should consider. Clearly, 2 times before, city electors said, sure, we'll approve this for discrete period of time. I know we as staff, and we would love for debrucing to be indefinite, but maybe I'm interested in your thoughts on whether you think you should ask electors for general debrucing authority for only a particular set of time, thinking that might be more palatable. And it doesn't have to be 4 years, maybe it's 10, or maybe it's forever, just go for it. But I thought that was a very interesting history that was reflected when we look back on these kinds of ballot questions.
John, what do you think?
I was against the original favor issue way back when, so yeah, I'm in favor of this. Yeah, I think it's good for the city.
Art, we're discussing the debrucing, and so far the general consensus is that we put it up to the voters, let them decide if they want to, to debruce or not. How do you feel?
I think going in front of voters is always a good idea.
All right, very good. Looks like we have the direction.
All right, we'll work on getting the word out. We'll come up with a sample or a draft ballot measure that you all can look at. And so
all right,
we'll have a resolution probably on the agenda for that second meeting in August. Well, and that's when we have to refer it to the county.
excellent.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
If we want to be active and try and get to the public information, would we ask for staff help on that, or
Yeah,
how should?
Carmen, can we together maybe put together a fact sheet for council, talking points, and maybe a sample ballot measure?
That would be great.
We'll work on that.
Yes.
Next couple of weeks, get that taken care of. Yep.
Anything else? Carmen, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir.
Well, thank you very much. The next thing on the work session is the opioid settlement update. Jonathan.
Mayor and Council, I have been participating on the Region 10 Opioid Council for the last year. I put some background about what we're doing in my staff report and how we got to this place, but essentially the state of Colorado entered a settlement with several opioid manufacturers and distributors throughout the country and the world. And we have probably, we have a good amount of money. There's going to be more coming in, and it's going to keep increasing as we go. And what we have done is we've allocated our share of the money that we get to the Region 10 Opioid Council. This happened last year, and there's a couple of reasons for this. One, public health is a county priority usually. We want to participate in those efforts and have a regional effort. But the second is that we get a very small percentage of a percentage of these funds, which last year was about $5,000. It's possible that goes up, but we're not allowed to purchase Narcan. We're not allowed to do things that could actually help the PD respond to people in crisis. And so putting our funding into the council and being able to participate on it as a voting member right now is probably more valuable to us and probably costs us less money than just administering these funds ourselves. So what we are asking for is direction on whether or not we should continue to allocate our funds to that council. Basically, we are in it unless we specifically opt out annually. I kind of included some of the things that are in the strategic plan of GROC. It's a little complicated how this works because they're sending out these requests for proposals. It's a little bit different than what we think of them as. They're really grants to communities in Clear Creek County, Gilpin County, Jefferson County, and agencies that do substance abuse work to get funding. So you see the year one funding totals in those 5 categories in the strategic plan. Those are monies that are going to be made available in Clear Creek County and all the 3 counties, including to us if we want to access those funds and can get a grant, which probably the grant would be bigger than the allocation anyway. So some of these things, I know the opioid space is a very complex and difficult to navigate one because sometimes the best public health outcomes are achieved by programs that don't always on the face of them look like they're the best ones. But I put these 5 areas in, these are what we're working on, and I'm happy to talk to you. Our chief about what these things actually would accomplish in our community. Essentially, what the whole goal here is to help people who need care, help people who are coming out of care, make sure we have a co-responder program that can deal with people who are having a crisis where they may be going to overdose or something like that, so that we have kind of like similar to the co-responder program that Chief has been talking about, and that would be through all 3 counties. Recovery community organizations are just trying to build capacity within these populations in each county, that there's peers and support groups similar to Alcoholics Anonymous or one of those other kinds of organizations that can help with people who know what's happening and build some support systems that way. And then harm reduction is making sure that there's tools available. We had a meeting about this at Vitality Task Force Day, actually. Dr. Ryan is going to start training restaurant staff downtown on how to administer Narcan, and also making sure that fentanyl strips are available, because we know that fentanyl can kill very quickly. And so we want to make sure that, even if you found something on the street, that you don't touch it in a way that would hurt you and things like that. So we're just trying to have these tools available in our community. If you have any questions for us, I'm happy to answer them, or Chief.
I'll just say real quick, Jonathan's doing all the work on this, but I support the city continuing in basically investing its money regionally. And I think it does more good that way. Certainly we're starting with a co-responder program here, and you all know in the presentation, Brian Monsoon and the MES. So maybe some real dollars can come to that program, which I think could be a benefit. Jonathan's doing the work, and I just wanted to say thanks for all your work on that report. You did a great job. Thank you. Just to share my thoughts on that. I think it's money to continue to participate with the large group versus a small amount of money for just us.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Jonathan. Kate, what do you think?
I think we should continue, obviously.
John? Art? Okay. Jeremy, be curious to your thoughts.
I think it's a good program to continue. For example, we've got Narcan on the train, which is 265,000 visitors a year.
Hmm.
So they expanded to the restaurants is kind of the next part of that conversation. They started about a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And all the officers are carrying it, and they've used it. You guys have safe and safer parking lot, Narcan. So this is the best way to get these programs out there and available. And for pennies on the dollar for our contribution towards this program, what it's done in the last 2 years has been amazing from my perspective. The number of lives saved is, we'll probably never know how many actually get saved, the most reported, but the ones that are reported, the numbers increased.
And it's interesting, the numbers you were just saying on the train, because some of our larger restaurants have that.
Should be close to that.
Right,
so
exactly.
it's a key part of how we promote public health, I think, and give people another day to live the life.
Right. Scott?
So Chief answered one of my questions, because I was going to ask about the county program, but this money comes to the city. Is this coming directly to the city, or is this county money, or?
So the way the MOU works is a little bit complicated, but basically there's a local government allocation that's based upon a lot of factors, like how many people have had overdoses, the size of our county, and demographics like that. And I want to say that we get like I had in my set report.
This is roughly 4.7%.
4.7%
allocated to Clear Creek County.
Yeah, which is only 20% of the total supplement.
They get a percentage of that.
Yeah.
So my question, these are great programs. I mean, the 5 bullet points, the co-responders, obviously the county is being active on that one. These other ones for them to be effective and someone to watch over, how do those get administrated over, who's going to be, is that the police department? Is that?
There's a Region 10 opioid council, Gateway to the Rockies, it's called CROC. And that is a board. So there's like stakeholder groups, and then there's voting members. Right now, I am a voting member, but it's a rotating seat of 2 years. That's appointed by the county. And so it has to be a municipality in Clear Creek County. So probably it'll go to, one of the other communities when my term is over. And basically what we do is make sure that these funds get dispersed in the community. So one of the things that we've been focusing on from the Clear Creek perspective is making sure that these services are available close to home and they don't end up in like Littleton, because that's going to be hard for our people. One of the things we've also been hearing is like, for instance, recovery housing and care have better outcomes when people are within their own communities and like don't have to go down into the metro. So we've been trying to find ways, you know, and there's other problems that come with there's a lot of balancing that needs to happen for those to happen. So basically that's what we've been focusing on, is making sure that services are, you know, Jefferson County is so big, we need to make sure Gilpin County and Clear Creek County are represented appropriately. So I think what will happen is the GROC will give that money. So for one example is public health here is probably going to apply for several of these grants. They'll get money and then that'll be just administered through a typical grant process like you would see like from the state or something like that. These funds will also probably be matched like on an ongoing basis by state funds, other state funds. The intention is that we don't have 10 years of money and then it goes away. They're trying to build up some really good programming that's funded in the future through making sure that this work is coordinated.
So these bullet points, these other ones besides the co-responder then, are those being run by the group you're talking about or from public health?
Private groups will apply to GROC for the funding or public groups. So like the PD could potentially apply for harm reduction stuff if you wanted to, or maybe they partner with public health because public health has that and they can go get it or whatever the case would be. So using the money at the local level would be whatever local organization, but some of these funds will also be available to private groups that do this work too. Like there's some harm reduction groups, Rocky Mountain Harm Reduction is one of them. And they do things like bring showers and test strips and all the, you know, needle exchanges, all those kinds of things. So it wouldn't necessarily be us that's doing it unless we apply for funding.
Well, like anything out there, it just seems like someone has to head this up to make it effective and actually make use of it. And I was curious how that would be implemented. So
there will be like standards that people have to meet from GROC to get the funding, and then they'd probably do some reporting, just similar like how we do when we have a state program or something.
But it sounded like police and public health would have a big hand in it.
Yeah.
All right, anything more? Well, I think staff has a direction on that. Looks like we'll continue down the road that we have been with the larger group. I'd like to move to the last item and just give you a little bit of background. I literally stumbled on this. It'll be a couple of years ago in October. I was on city council and I was going door to door for mayor. And I knocked on this one door. Not in a million years would I've imagined. They said, yeah, you know, we'd really like to talk to you about something. The neighbors have an excessive amount of animals. Now, remember I said it was October and it was kind of a cooler day. And I saw this next door neighbor had like 6 animals. And they said, oh, well, they've got more. There are probably some inside the residence. Couldn't smell anything, but it was a cool day. And I suggested that they talk with Zach. But I did say, I thought, just from my memory, there was pretty skimpy animal regulations in Idaho Springs. I could only remember one specifically, and it was about excessive parking. So, not everything, you know, year and a half goes by, and Art gets a call. It's these same folks, and it's got worse. And there's even more animals, and it's reeking to high heaven is the complaint. And next thing I know, Chief is taking a look at it too.
Yeah.
And Chief, I think you said the area is like only about as big as these 2 tables or something.
Maybe 1 table.
Oh, wow.
That's disgusting and horrible.
So it brought up, again, Jonathan did a great job on the staff report, so thank you. Our code enforcement officer obviously could use the codes that we have to address some of the issues that people have with either not cleaning up feces or, you know, excessive barking and things like that, of that nature. But a lot of municipalities do have some limitations on the types of animals that are in a municipal area. The example that we're discussing is, you know, there's somebody that has a
has goats, it has pig and other animals. So with the way that it's currently a bit lacking as far as what's allowed and not allowed, and I'm not a person who says that government needs to always make always be everybody else's business, but I guess for the sake of a community and a community's health, it's something that I think as staff, we were just looking for some potential guidance on if the city should look at or begin the process of looking at, limitations on the number of dogs. For example, a lot of municipalities have like 4 is kind of a number, usually a number. Are you allowed to have pigs, or how many, or goats, or so it just, I don't think it necessarily is an everyday issue. But it's this complaint definitely created some behind the scenes discussions about this. So that's why we brought this to council to see what people think.
And although this was almost 2 years ago, there was a potbelly pig. And I thought, well, that's something you don't see every day. And I think there was a chicken or 3. But it does raise the question of, you get so many animals in a little area, like the size of one of these tables. It's not, right, it isn't.
I think that because this is gonna be a touchy subject for whomever is going to approach it. And so rather than us sit here and go, this is what I think for the square footage, there's actually codes already out there in existence for towns just like ours. I say investigate 3 or 4, find out what their codes are, and let's follow suit and say, this is kind of how it is across the board, and it makes sense. Rather than we sit here and we're picking on one house or another house or one creature or another creature.
Kate, I think that's a great suggestion.
That is if you can find 3 the same. Are they?
Well, I know
Are
it's tricky.
Do we know if they're this similar or?
I always like to throw out my
Sometimes
go-to, and
they're
I will
like
be telling you, I'm
one's up here,
struggling
one's
right
down
now to find a town. I would say Craig could probably have a rural community that has animals in their backyard. I would say Alma, because they live closer together. Sterling, okay, yeah. So, and maybe even like Fort Morgan.
Oh, yeah, Fort Morgan.
Fort Morgan would be
But
good.
what's the zoning say about it?
Well, we don't have it. That's what they're discussing, is we don't
But I
have
thought
rules
like,
against,
I thought like C2 would, that
Well,
allows livestock anyway.
well,
but you're not in
it's
C2 and.
it's a
Well, it
few,
could be, though.
it's a few generic ones, like,
Right.
I could remember the one about barking dogs, excessive barking.
Yeah, because my
there-
neighbor got chickens. They had, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them. And then there's that lady up the street from me, she's got 2 or 3 big geese that are there. And then Laura had 2 potbellies, forever,
Well, the
Laura did,
the way
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can put
forever and ever.
The neighbors had over 20 animals there. So they were a mixture of animals. So there's 2 prospective ways to look at this. There's an animal cruelty that we're gonna discuss as well. Because there's certain animals that can't get along with each other.
Right.
But 20 in a small yard, she just, and it was a year and a half since she complained. So she could, they were accumulating animals as days went on. So I think we should go look at it 2 ways. It's, I don't know about 20. I mean, I got a brother-in-law in Iowa's got 100 animals. He's got 7 acres of land. So I think it's gotta be competitive to what's available. 3 geese. I don't see a problem.
I mean, I think it's
But-
out there though. I mean, you guys are gonna do, it's already out there. Like, people have already done this on acreage and they've gone, this is how many, it's not like you just had this problem.
Regulations, I know.
Yeah. I
So
think
is it-
I think that's a great idea. I think animal cruelty is one thing, but also what effect on a neighbor and at what point is that like stepping on?
Right.
I mean,
Infringing on
who
other
wants
people's
to be
rights.
next to a feces smell?
You're not
Yeah.
gonna open your windows.
And how does that get defined in these regulations? But that's not fair to some citizen that's has a neighbor that doesn't take care of the odor and
Right.
other things that go along with this.
And I'm sorry, one other qualifier I should tell you. A year and a half ago, I had asked them to work with Zach. Maybe they could find some kind of common ground. I openly admitted I felt we were skimpy on regulations regarding that. I only found out recently that these people have some fear of the neighbors and reprisal.
Yeah.
So I now believe they may not have reached out a year and a half ago.
And again, that's why us, like kind of emulating other towns, sort of takes that, like, we're picking on certain animals or certain people or certain places off the table. We are just generally going across the board and saying, this makes sense for our community, like it does for others. And we understand that that's gonna be a hardship for some people who may, I mean, we could let the animals grandfather out. That is a natural thing that will happen. They will die. You know,
Nobody's got a cow in their front yard.
nobody's got a cow, but I will tell you that I have been in a pig farm. And I don't know that I could handle that for like day in and day out.
Well, but Jonathan,
I don't think I could.
correct me if I'm wrong, let me speak. C2, it's agricultural as well, correct?
You can, C2, you're not actually allowed to have a residential home in though, so it's non.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, C2,
Yeah.
you can, right?
Correct, well, yeah, but we could look at that too, potentially, because some of our
Within the
C2
city
districts,
limits?
we might have to
Yes.
look at that issue, because C2, we have some C2 up on Colorado Boulevard where yeah, we want to look at non-conforming residential uses, I think, for sure,
Okay.
and that, which is an issue. But I do think that, one thing to remember too is you are like objectively allowed to own a pig right now by code. It says you
Sure.
may own a potbelly.
But if you're
I
zoned
don't have a problem with
C2,
the pig. I'm talking about 20 pigs.
I know, I'm just
you can
saying,
also have a residential though in C2, correct?
yes. So
So
it's just not allowed, it's not an allowed use right now, so it could,
what would it be?
a home in C2.
So you can't live there with your animals.
You're-
So you're not
yeah.
living there.
It's like
Which, by the
grandfathered
way,
in,
I would
basically.
think that would be a great rule to
Yeah.
implement, you need to live where your animals abide as well.
But if you're zoned commercial but have residential at the, on top or something, that's still C2, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated the way they wrote the code, but in theory, you could do that. And there's a lot of people who do live in C2 just because of the way the homes lie, but if they were to change their home, it would create problems for them.
The only reason I'm bringing that up is, totally irrelevant and off the record. I said, well, if somebody doesn't look like looking at a wrecked semi that I got, then that's no big deal. I'll go over to Big R, I'm gonna get 10 gate panels and,
To smell though, you don't have to smell the semi.
well, don't matter. Doesn't say anything about the smell. So.
Well, we
what
should
would
have
you-
a smell ordinance, by the
Well, what
way.
would you rather
It
see
does-
or at?
We actually do,
That's my whole point of this, is that
but we actually do, I think there is a
There
smell
is this,
thing.
you could say it's a nuisance, I think, under
Yeah, because I remember
1014.
I had a
Sure.
neighbor
well, then the
who was
marijuana,
pooping all over your, Property.
marijuana thing ought to come in.
Oh,
for that.
yes.
well, and it does, by the way, it was a huge discussion when marijuana was legalized. So was coffee.
Well, right.
So there's a lot of things that smelled in town. So yeah, we were
I
there.
just want to give you my little experience where this is all going. When I was in State College, Pennsylvania, we had a city hall that would fit 200 people. And we would have our meetings weekly, bi-weekly, 5 people, 6 people. One guy came in and said, I want to have chickens. The next 4 meetings, there was 200 people there for each.
Is that
meeting.
unbelievable?
Right.
So I want to let you know where this is going to be going.
Again, that's why we use other
They
people's
wound up
rules.
allowing chickens, but they didn't allow roosters, and only so many chickens, but, months after, people were still feuding over it, but this is where it's gonna go, if the
Right.
public gets involved in it. And I see, what Jimmy's saying, so, this is not gonna be easy.
Mhm.
10, 15 years ago, Georgetown went through the same thing. Most of the people that had chickens were okay, but there was one that had manure as big as this room pile. And that was a complaint, and you're right, half the town showed up, and half was against everything, and half was for.
Wow.
And we ended up having a new ordinance. Yeah.
Here's the deal, I mean, we're simply asking people to be responsible. All right, a
Yeah,
pile of
yeah, that's
manure
all, yeah.
this high is not responsible.
Right.
If you have a rooster and this is what roosters do,
I know.
crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning, like our old neighbor used to do, that is not responsible. Somebody's gonna get that. Well, that's good, then you should move to a farm outside.
Go to Hawaii.
Yeah, well, you didn't work until 4 o'clock in the morning, so.
It got to the point where we had.
I think like living next to the train
You know,
tracks.
meetings
you used to-
with those
No,
guys.
I did not get so. Did not care for that.
That's how serious we got.
Whatsoever.
It was wild. It was really wild. So I just thought I'd point that out.
What was the outcome?
They allowed chickens, no roosters. I can't remember what the number of chickens that they allowed, but it was no more than.
I say they
no
have
more than
chickens,
a dozen,
no gates,
probably less.
and then we want.
And they had to have certain, pen them a certain way and what have you.
Let 'em run.
And then, you know, we were as rural as here, but we
Colorado
had
fence outlaw.
foxes coming in at the chickens.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so there was another level of what went in there. So anyway, I just thought I'd refer you guys.
Nothing's getting my backyard except for.
I think that lady having to have 20 different kind of animals, I think it's a little too much, but what she described to me. And she claimed that a couple of nights there was gunfire next door. I asked her, you know, could she substantiate that? And she could not. She wasn't gonna go there and look for shells or anything,
Right.
but she did call the police, but I don't know if she was referring to the gunshot recently or when your time, because she said the police came and said, you know, there's nothing we would see. But I don't think it was current, you would have been aware of it, so I don't know, but that was one of the things you said.
And it would make sense if that was a year and a half ago, because like I said, it didn't smell. The day I was there, I could clearly see about 6.
She claimed she bought some property there to build a house, but that's gonna be a couple of years down the line,
Uh,
so.
Okay, to answer your question, that Colorado's is an open range state.
Yeah.
So it's government's job to fence your livestock off of their.
Their property. I know, it is an interesting thing, because, you know, but there's a lot more fences for people than there are for livestock.
Which is the way it is.
Yeah.
Can't change it.
Yeah.
So. I
I
guess
also
you don't wanna
believe
live
we-
around Caldwell.
As an or-
Boulevard, it's our problem.
Animal
We could bring back these ordinances for review.
Yeah, I
Let's-
like Kate's suggestion about we look at what similar communities have done. You know, try to find some common sense. Would everybody be all right with that?
I think it eliminates maybe some of the stuff Art's talking about if we have a guideline from another city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Instead of us just dreaming up.
Jamie's on the right track, by the way, using the Front Range and almost the plains, because it's really gonna be more commonplace down there than it
Sure.
is.
Well, you can ask the chief, how was it in the small towns of Wyoming outside of Cheyenne when,
I wouldn't even mind a cow, honestly. I would rather have a cow.
I mean, how was it there? What was the kind of the ordinances and
Usually there were regulations within municipalities.
but it was still an open range state though. As
Yes,
far as like,
yes, it was.
okay,
Yes.
like us, like we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody okay with that? All right, well, I want to thank everybody. We're about 20 minutes early.
That's normal.
Folks like to take a break.
So it's good that we are this orange state. And let's just say I have next to BLM property. But it's leased out, by a family that's leased it out for 80 years.
Small with.
You've got it. Ringlets again, and it's a Wonder Bread ringlets, with like little circles and stuff. Yeah, it's super cute.
Have a little sandwich. And the other one.
Yeah, you like the reverse.
Oh, I do.
Oh, so congratulations.
Okay.
Spent 21 grand on all those times 5 years ago.
That's cool.
I know, a lot, actually, yeah, like a third. So around now for we just got engaged. Lots of sirens today. For inflation.
Did they, hey, Jeremy, I was gonna ask you, was the lady okay down
She can do what she wants.
that,
Get
that
down
corner?
25.
Take it pretty good.
I've heard she was unconscious or
Yeah.
something.
Well, yeah, no, they can, absolutely. I've invited them.
You guys, I know it was pretty quick response, somebody was on scene.
Of course.
We use the guys. I'd be okay with that, but no.
That was just what. Don't say.
Now you look like
Good,
Superman.
good, I'm glad, I was
Now
wondering.
you look like the Terminator.
I was wondering how it didn't sound well. Good.
Now I can see you. Now I can see you clearly.
Didn't listen about this thing.
I need to get new glasses.
You're a little bit.
It gets like tense.
Pretty fast, doesn't it? Well, hello, I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 10th, 2023 regular City of Idaho Springs Council meeting. We will convene at 7 p.m. And I'd like to start out with roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Kate Collier. Here. Art Cacavelli.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Jim Clark.
Happy to be here.
John Curtis.
Here.
Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Thank you.
All please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda for July 10th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Kate. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest? Hearing none, I'll move to the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from June 26th, 2023.
Thank you, Jimmy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Art. And any discussion of the minutes? All those in favor, please raise your right hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move to the bills. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to move to approve the bills for July 10th, 2023.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Scott. Any discussion of the bills? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier. Yes. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
And do we have any public comment? No. Okay. We don't have the finance officer with us tonight,
No, sir.
and I will move on to resolutions, starting with resolution number 10. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 10, series 2023, a resolution of intent to conduct the 2023 regular city election as an election coordinated by the Clearfield County Clerk and Recorder.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Jeremy. Any discussion? I hear none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up is resolution number 11. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 11, series 2023, a resolution approving a trail development agreement between the city and Shrek Foundation Incorporated concerning the development and naming of trails in Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
Second.
And
Art's got it.
second from Art. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
And last up on the resolutions is number 12. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 12, series 2023, a resolution approving an agreement between the city and the Colorado Mountain Bike Association, COMBA, concerning project management of the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park Trail System.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Jeremy. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, tonight we don't have any first readings or second readings. We do have the city attorney with us tonight. Welcome, Carmen. You have anything to share with us?
I do not, I'm happy to say.
All right, okay, well, thank you. City administrator, we have one request for action. And do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a purchase agreement between HTLF Bank, successors by merger to Centennial Bank, subject to final review and approval by the city attorney for the acquisition of the former citywide bank building and property at 1744 Minor Street for the new police department headquarters. Total purchase price of $656,250 from account 21-00-7043. Land acquisition is comprised of the city's offer price of $625,000, a transaction fee of $31,250. Staff is also authorized to issue an earnest money deposit in the amount of $65,625, which is 10% of the purchase price, while the sale transaction is completed.
Jeremy, that was a mouthful. Thank you very much.
Nice one.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, John?
Need you about it, yeah.
And some discussion, hopefully this will go nowhere, but they did receive another offer on the property. It is my belief that we have a deal. And I expect all parties to conduct themselves appropriately. So stay tuned, but I'm also wanted to know, is there any further discussion?
Congratulations, chief and PD, all of us, yeah.
This is
John King.
Keeping my fingers
Good
crossed.
job,
that it
guys.
Yeah,
gets
for
through.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
A lot of hard work on you guys' part too. Thank you.
If they got another offer, we have a contract on it, right?
Well, Scott, I believe we do.
I'm sure, no.
I was actually, I'm sorry, Carmen.
Yeah. Does Carmen feel we have a contract?
If needed be, Mayor and Council, I'll probably talk with you in executive session about this further, again, if need be. I had a discussion with Mayor and Andy about this earlier today. It's certainly our belief that we have an agreement in principle. Is an agreement executed on paper at this time? No. But as Mayor stated, we hope that the seller complies with the deal that has, in our view, been in place for several days. So if we need to visit again about this in the future in a privileged setting, we will.
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. With council's authority, I will sign the contract for us tonight after the meeting. And then they would sign and they would receive the 10% that Jeremy had just, the number that he had just pointed out here in the resolution. So any more discussion?
Carmen, would it be appropriate to ask questions pertaining to the deal, not financial, but some of the language? Or, for instance, if you want to stop me, you can. If it's inappropriate, we need to discuss an executive. Mike, I had talked to Andy a little bit about this. He said that they have done some of the due diligence on inspections. But when you buy a property, you don't want to buy a property that needs a $60,000 roof or has foundation issues. So I just want to make sure that we have adequate time to perform an inspection if need be, and how we want to follow up on that, I guess.
Sure, that's a perfectly appropriate question for tonight, and I can handle that. The perhaps because of the manner in which the seller is currently offering the property for sale in the context of that auction, we visited a little bit about this. The proffered agreement is that the buyer takes the property as is, given the due diligence documents that were made available to us. We as a city were given and have reviewed, we had JVA review 2 different documents. There was a phase 1 environmental assessment that JVA reviewed and did not raise any red flags. Additionally, a not environmentally specific, but more of an evaluation, and it was quite extensive. I think it was 80 some pages of a report concerning the condition of the property. Again, we as staff had JVA on our team take a look at that, and again, did not indicate any issues of major concern on their part. So those were the due diligence documents that we were given and that we have evaluated as a city. And again, with JVA's input, I think the staff's evaluation of the documents is that no deal breakers there. Is an inspection permitted under, again, the proffered sale, purchase and sale agreement? No. So we would not have that opportunity. This is with the information we're given and as is sale offer. Scott.
So that being said, this building, we're all aware of, fairly familiar with this building as it sits.
Yeah.
But if you walked in that building and there was a plumbing leak that's been happening and we purchased that building, we have recourse for something under those circumstances then, or?
And Scott, if it makes you feel any better, we went through and inspected the
You did a
building
walk
today.
through.
Actually, this is the second time. If there was anything glaring, like a roof leak or a plumbing leak, I mean, we would have seen it.
Yeah, so that was my question. Did you were able to do a walkthrough?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and we were not limited. We spent as much time as you know you'd ever want. I honestly feel it's in extremely good condition.
All right, good. Thank you. Cool. That's all I got.
I have a question. When we came to the conclusion to make our offer, were we under any conversation by the seller that they were still accepting offers?
Art, this was a shocker to me to hear this today. But as I said, I believe, I think we still have a deal. So hopefully it won't go any further, and I will sign this agreement with council's authority, and we'll consummate the deal.
And that being said, when they say they've got an offer, it doesn't mean they have an offer higher than our offer. They could just be using it as a pressure
Scott,
package.
you are exactly right.
By the way, I would have
We
lied
had
about
no
that and
idea.
said I had an offer when I really didn't have an offer.
Sure.
For the record,
That's possible too. So.
you know, I would have done that just to see what I could get.
And any more discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
All right, we will move to Assistant City Administrator, and Jonathan, nothing more to share with us tonight?
One quick update. We had an opportunity to apply for a micro grant at $6,500 to help us come into compliance with digital ADA requirements for our website and other digital documents. It's probably a $20,000 project, and we had to get it in today, so I went ahead and just applied for the money.
All right, thank you.
Nice one.
Yeah. Any questions for Jonathan? All right, we will move to Deputy City Clerk. Wonder, you have a report. I'm gonna modify the agenda just ever so slightly. I'm happy to say that council received a report from Lou Howard regarding the cemetery and particularly the 3 missing headstones, which even date back to our very first Mayor Griswold, whose headstone or a name is missing, along with a couple others. You saw in your packet for approximately $1,200 and some bags of concrete, we would be able to rectify this situation. And wondered, did you have anything to add, or were we bringing Lou up?
I would love to bring Lou up to speak
And
about this.
Lou, let me say, we really owe you a debt of gratitude for taking the cemetery under the wing as you have all these years. And what you do with such a micro amount of money is truly amazing. I was floored with all of the concrete steps and handrails that you were able to get done for, in my opinion, very frugal money. But really, I can tell it's it's a labor of love, and I know you have a lot of volunteers who show up and improve things and do the cemetery cleanup. So thank you so much.
Like you say, it's labor of love, so. I was just concerned because I found these 3 1859ers without headstones. And actually Griswold's wife has a headstone, but he doesn't. His son's also buried there, but it's part of history, and I just think we need to honor them. And the way I see to honor them is by having a headstone placed for each
Very
one.
cool.
So, and I found a company in Ohio, and they will do a gray granite 20 by 10 by 3. Right now it's on a special for $349, and it's free shipping. I mean, granite's the best for up here.
Right.
And I have a friend who did order one. They're nice. They're simple. As you can see, I just kind of showed you what they kind of look like. But anyway, it's not in the budget for this year because I didn't know about them until now. And as it turned out, a lady in France requested a photo of Paul Chapman. And I'm like, there isn't one.
Huh.
And she said, well, she knew he was a miner and he was buried there. So I did research. He was quite a character, and he really, so it brought to light, I thought, well, I wonder if there's others. And I knew there was Griswold, and then I found William Hobbs as well. William Hobbs is buried in Potter's Field, which we really needed, but it's still not there. So I found these names in the history book, the Clear Creek history book. And I researched the others, and they're not buried there, or they have a headstone. So I believe these are the only 3.
Well, thank you. And I hate to put you on the spot, but allowing for some bags of concrete.
Yeah, and Paul, I need his help. 'Cause
Well,
they need to have a fountain.
Yep, no
Foundation.
problem. If we had,
Experts at moving headstones.
if we had a
Sounds very
motion tonight, say, for $1,250, and this is, I'm gonna ask staff if we can find this somewhere. But if we had a motion for $1,250, do you feel that would be enough for ordering? And I understand it's free shipping, but we do need some concrete, and there may be
There'll be
some
taxes. and you
some
never
little
know what
incidentals.
it's gonna come
Do
out.
you feel that would be?
Right now, it's on the website, it's still on sale, tomorrow might be a different
Right,
story, but,
All right, well, thank you so much. And does council have any questions for Lou?
I had one question. Lou, why do you think his name, Griswold's name was left off of the tombstone?
It wasn't his tombstone, it's his wife's tombstone.
I thought, so it's
And
not,
she died before him, so they're, you know.
And
she
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
there to
Lou,
take
Lou
care of
is,
that.
is he not buried there with her?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is,
But
okay.
he was buried later. She died. He put up a headstone for her.
They didn't do double back then, like on the
interesting.
front and back,
It
correct?
is.
And I
And the son
I
didn't do
also
one.
thought about doing that originally would be to put, because there is room, but let me tell you, that's a big problem, getting stones and graves. And I actually, it's not a nice stone, you know, it's not granite, it's just, you know.
Sure.
I can
So
imagine a standing headstone.
Will these be flat then? Or will they be flat? Or will they be?
It'll be flat, but if, you know, if we do a cement foundation, we can kind of.
Yeah,
lift it up a little bit.
sure, yeah.
And
of
those
course.
are the best actually, because they don't get knocked over. they
Sure.
don't get destroyed.
I agree. There we go. That would be where we would bring that money from.
Well, just because we don't have power over their budget,
That's what I'm-
It would be an ask after- after the fact.
Exactly.
But we could make the motion through council for that
Yeah, but if not, I just want to ensure that there's money
allocated for
right
that.
for that. Lou, we're just having some discussion because many council members are aware that the Historical Society also has a cemetery fund, although we do not control their budget. So what I'm
Well,
just
exactly.
suggesting we do
Yeah.
tonight, if the funds are available here at the city, that is covered one way or the other.
And I mean, there are funds down there that a gentleman gave to us for the cemetery. And I talk to him every time. Right now, we want to do the last set of steps with that money, and then I'm not sure how much.
I got
is
you,
left
okay.
over.
All right, well, I'm glad you shared that with us because it may be the case that it's already spoken for in planning for improvements at the
Yeah,
cemetery.
until I find out
this.
what's left. I
Exactly.
won't know until they do the steps.
Andy, Jonathan, I just want to touch base with you before I make a motion, is that is there enough discretionary funds that we could cover that?
We do have a separate cemetery fund and we do budget a line item for maintenance every year. I think it might be 5,000. So
Yeah,
I know.
In fact, I think it was, I'm not aware if we spent any of it.
We
Well,
have not. There's a need for it though.
there is, not for all of it, but I'll have a couple of toppers put back on this year. They come from Greeley and do it. So that, there'll be that expense. And then I have section signs that we got last year, and I mean, I guess technically, if the city crew helps me put them up or whatever, then that really comes probably out of that budget as well. I don't know how it works. So, but 5,000 is way more than I know of, so.
Okay.
The other thing I might tell you is that fund balance has built up there. So I know we've got additional fund balance that would more than cover, various maintenance things, this if you would choose. Because things have been done frugally over the years, it's often not fully spent what we budget.
Right.
It's a fund that's built up for purposes such as this.
Well, I appreciate that. I would like to make a motion that we approve up to $1,250 for the 3 missing headstones that we affectionately refer to as the 1859ers. And that it to be from this outfit that Lou Howard has identified right now that has those headstones on sale, and that part of the $1,250 goes for some bags of concrete, and that we allow staff time to assist in setting the headstones. Do I have a second? Second from Jeremy. Any discussion?
I just have a question for Lou or Andy. Andy, if anybody is out there listening and they want to contribute to the cemetery fund, I know that that's something that they can do. Is there a way that we can get that information out, or we can say it right now so that people know that, $5, $10, $15, that could help if there's any change on the end that needs
It's
some
always
cleaning up?
been my understanding that we couldn't take donations.
I thought,
And so when I got the donation before, we put it in the historical society because the 501(c)(3), and they could take the donation, so I don't.
You could donate through the
Carmen, what-
historical society.
Yeah.
this would be a Carmen, though.
Lou, if I'm not mistaken, I know at one point in time, we had a brother and sister who had, and the way they did it is, the Historical Society has sequestered funds. And one of those funds is for the cemetery, and it's not commingled, it's a separate account.
Right.
So if folks want to donate, so I know in the past that's been a way that we've done
Right,
it.
and so, and also someone, every once in a while I do tours or whatever, and they'll think, please take a donation, I'm like, I can't. And I said, go down to the Historical Society and make a donation, and they'll put it in the cemetery account, so.
Yeah.
That's how we've been doing that.
It seems like this should be easier for people to give to a fund that is essentially a nonprofit within our city. I mean, maybe Chuck, we can look at this in the future, because I think everybody really loves our cemetery and adores the history there. And there's, going through the historical society is not a bad thing, it's just.
We may have to change the nature just because it is a city property.
Right.
So but I know that this does work with
It
the
has been working.
historical society, setting aside funds for improvements.
And the Historical Society has done a lot up there, not from that fund on their own, so.
And it takes volunteers.
Absolutely.
It takes volunteers, mostly. It's work, it's mostly work. Not so much money, it's work.
Right. Any further discussion? A roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lou.
Next up is Police Chief. Anything further for us tonight?
No, nothing new to add, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Public Works. One request for action for some funding for HDR in the engineering area. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve additional funding to HDR Engineering for additions made to the scope of work for the Virginia Street and Virginia Canyon Improvements Project for the amount of $23,765 from line item 23-005103.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second? And a second from Jeremy. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. And Ed, anything further for us tonight?
I didn't get to turn in a staff report, I've been on vacation.
But you even came in at least one of those days, just because you couldn't resist staying away from us.
I did.
So,
Deserve a vacation.
yeah, well, thank you.
I did come in a couple of them. I love this place,
All right,
so
all right.
I do.
I don't have anything to add other than we will not have a work session, a regular meeting for 2 weeks until July 24th. And before we adjourn, is there anything further from anybody?
On this water leak here, do we need to have more discussion with the infrastructure we have, or at some point?
Yeah, Scott, we have just requested $1 million grant. And, we try to help ourselves by passing that 1 cent sales tax was really the way to go. that thing is so pitted. Paul, told me about springing a leak on a Wednesday. And I think that Friday, Hollywood wouldn't script this, but Friday I was given the presentation to request $1 million. And I told him, like, I'm not making this up. Literally, Paul dug it up yesterday. And I said, the thing is, when I say Band-Aid, and I tell them it's all pitted, there isn't good meat anywhere, you don't have good iron. And they're trying to, cobble stuff together as best we can, but that's a 200 PSI, down here on this business. So you can imagine how much water is trying to get through there at 200 PSI.
The hole in the side is might cut the water out. The hole in the bottom is the leak.
The
Yeah.
leak.
Wow.
And I explained to them that,
I think we need to keep that in the front desk.
this pipe is sitting in acidic soil. It often is sitting below the water table, so it's just soft and wet.
Yeah.
And you get this electrolytic corrosion, and I hope that we'll hear something positive in the next few weeks. We're also applying for a state revolving funds, and it's in the millions. So we're trying to put this on a fast track.
They predicted life on some of this piping, right? So I imagine that we probably exceeded the life.
Well, you know what's really
unfortunate. Half the life of this, ductile iron's supposed to be about 80 to 100 years.
Yeah, but look at your soil conditions. That's-
And we're at 40 years on this pipe, and it's because of the soil conditions,
Yeah.
it's because of the water table. That is half the life of this water line.
And the good news, though, is the PVC 16-inch that we're proposing replacing this with, right, is impervious to this kind of stuff. Also, it'll give us the flexibility to have some hydrants for firefighting clear up to the water plant, which is really, vital in steep valleys where, you can imagine quickly a fire could spread and what the ash could do to, our water plant and stuff. So anyways, hopefully, we get that grant. And, but I think the voters did us all a favor by passing that 1 cent sales tax. John?
Since we're, don't have an enterprise fund now, do we have to put this in front of the voters?
Only if we actually borrow money.
Okay. So we're not gonna have any match funds?
We
We're
do
gonna
have
take
some
that
match
out.
funds budgeted.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Good.
Good question.
So it's possible, John, it's been depending upon how, how we do with the state revolving fund with grants, there's more grant money available now, so. And some of the grants through the state revolving fund act more like loans, but they're forgivable loans. So we may have to go to the voters in a case like that, just to say, here it is, but it's a forgivable loan. So we have to go through all the process of a loan, but it acts like a grant. So a little bit more to come on that, but you're right, anything we would borrow, we would have to go to the voters. Water and sewer, yes.
All right, anything more before we adjourn?
I do.
Oh, yes.
Talk about the sales tax. The issuance of it was delayed. That's why it's not in your report. Still to be in the next one. And then I want to let you know, I think it's significant road closure. Excel is doing work on the gas line that's on that Gilson Street Bridge. So it was supposed to be closed today. This morning it wasn't because Starbucks, but it's supposed to be closed from the 10th to the 28th, 24/7. So people will be going up Riverside, Casa Arno and stuff.
Boy.
And they got traffic control and all that. So that's
Wonder,
happening.
thank you. That is very
That's up.
important. Yeah.
They dug it up, they dug it up, and yeah, it's way overdue for replacement. So
Wow. That long.
They actually slipped a new line through the existing steel line that was leaking.
Yep.
And did a temporary tie-in. They were looking at options to either run it down Riverside to 23rd or replace it hanging on the bridge. And I guess they've opted to replace hanging it on the bridge.
It's similar to what happened in Georgetown, we did see last year in Georgetown,
Right.
across the bridge.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Almost exactly the same failure, they replaced it the same way. So
right, anything further? Well, I want to thank everybody. We'll call it adjourned at 7:32. Thank you.